Hey, this is Matt with Almost Deep. In my last video, I spoke a little bit about patterns I see in therapy and how people feel like they're just kind of going through the motions, following what life should look like, but not really feeling much of it. Today, I want to talk about something that's helped me reconnect with my own experience in a weird and subtle way. That's ambient music. Not like background noise or lo-fi beats, but real music that slows your mind down, makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, and shows you how fast you've been moving even without noticing that. So let me start by being a little bit specific here. I'm talking about artists like Stars of the Lid with Brian McBride, William Basinski, Callie Malone, Alva Noto. More, I guess you could say, experimental artists, but nothing with a hook or a beat or any lyrics. Something that feels like a landscape or a soundscape in a way, or a memory, right? Something that feels very long, drawn out, and could just play a couple of tones on top of each other, layered. Sometimes it's just one chord, right? That's stretched for 10 minutes. Sometimes it could just be some static, a cello, a tape hiss, synths that sound like they're kind of melding into one another. And when you really listen to it, not just kind of throw it on as passive background music, but tune into it, it does something strange to your mental interior. You stop thinking in words and you start feeling the weight of time. And I feel as I get older that time is going faster and faster, and sometimes it can be hard for me to grasp myself in those moments. Ambient music cuts through so much noise, not by being louder, but just by being still. When your mind is stimulated and you pay attention to it, and there's no real agenda with it, there's no build up, no drop off, and because of that, your brain gets a little bit confused because it's so used to, dopamine rushes and experiencing fast-paced marketing and screens and just everything thrown to your senses at once. Ambient music forces you to sit there and listen, and you start to slow down because of that. And when you do slow down, stuff does come up, right? So sometimes I'll be listening to something by Brian McBride as an example, Stars of the Lid, and suddenly, I'll be thinking about a past memory, or my mind will go off, almost like I'm meditating in a way. You see a version of yourself in the past, or maybe you don't see anything at all. Maybe you're just breathing and focusing on the moment itself, right? Not in a dramatic way, but a real physical, grounded way. It's almost like a way to help your mind meditate without actually realizing that it's meditating. So this music gives your nervous system a space to land, a space to just kind of exist and be without having the next thing hit your senses. For me, lately I've been able to make my own ambient music, and it's very, very simple. I'm no producer, right? I'll open up a synth and I'll maybe make some noises or use a field recorder to just kind of play with sound and see what feels true to myself, right? Just see what sounds good without any structure, no pressure to make it good, just tones, layers, and some space, right? And there's something healing about that, the act of doing it, but also the act of listening to it and hearing it back, like tracking the inner state that you felt while you were recording it. So sometimes it sounds warm, sometimes it sounds like decay. It's almost like seeing where your emotional landscape was at the time. And whatever way you see it is fine, because it's honest. And even if nobody ever hears it, I'm not usually posting this stuff publicly, it helps me feel like, you're there in the moment and you're really seeing the moment for what it is. We live in a culture that's always pushing to do more, to get more, to move faster. And ambient music gives a little bit of a refuge in all that noise, right? It doesn't just entertain you. It doesn't just like perform and give you something to latch onto. It just exists and it's there for a long period of time usually. And in doing that, it gives you permission to just let your guard down and focus on it. And that is a rare thing in today's world, right? For people like me, people who overthink and get stuck in loops all the time or burn themselves out just chasing goals, ambient music is like a big reset button. And not to zone out, but to actually feel again, right? When you're there and you're paying attention to what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and you're not looking at everything outside of yourself. So all that to say, if you've never tried to listen to ambient music or give it a real listen, I would heavily suggest it. And there's different ways to get into ambient music, right? Some of it is more experimental than others. I wouldn't start with something that's extremely repetitive, but William Basinski is a great example of an artist that makes a lot of this type of music that I'm speaking about. He doesn't really use synthesizers. He uses a lot of cassette tape loops, and it's very, very melded in well to one another. So you hear the end of one tape, but the next tape picks up immediately. And it's a very interesting thing to tune into and to pay attention to. You start to hear the decay of the tape as you're listening to it, and it really makes your mind slow down as you hear it. And it just creates this space that really gives you this clarity while you're there. And then once the moment is over, you feel almost rested. It'll change your emotional state. And, sometimes getting to the point of putting on that music and listening down to it for a moment is a difficult thing. Another album that I would suggest is A Meaningful Moment Through a Meaningless Process. It's a mouthful, by Stars of the Lid. A bit more accessible than William Basinski. It uses like real string instruments instead of cassette tape loops, and it's very, very slow and methodical, and you hear more actual phrases and parts of the song, right? It's not just straight repetitive. So in that way, I would say it's a much better place to start, but it still creates that same quality of spacelessness that, something like Basinski might. So I would definitely recommend giving it a shot or giving it a try. Let me know if it helps you in the comments, or if ambient music is something you have in your routine and you listen to it quite a bit. And all that to say, I listen to ambient music while I'm working all day, while I'm doing chores around the house or cleaning. It's a great thing to set my mind at ease. But at first it might be hard to do that because, you're not really used to it. But it does become this almost background music that I could tune into while I'm doing other things. Occasionally, it always helps me focus. It's quite the stimulant. So I would definitely recommend giving it a try, at least letting me know what you think in the comments. I'm really curious to hear other people's thoughts on this type of music and, what it does for you or what it doesn't do for you. But looking to have some more conversations about that. So thanks for watching. And I hope that this actually helps you out. So see you next time.